And I'll get back to sharing our screen. Make sure my little clicker works. Okay, well, I'll get to this PowerPoint to move with the clicker. I want to thank everybody for coming today, making the effort to take time out of your week, your very busy week, I bet, to be here with us. I'm gonna stop the share for a little bit because I want to make sure I can use my clicker here. So stop the share, close this one, and then for this one. I have a funny situation with Zoom this week in which it disappears from my screen. Hopefully it won't happen today. I mean, I'm the host this time, so it shouldn't happen. Okay, let's do this. Get out of this. All right. There we go. So we have 2, 4, 6, 7 people in the room. Thank you for attending in person. And we have about 6 more people online. I promise for those of you that are here for the first time, we will make this very entertaining and interactive. Thank you for coming to our 3rd workshop. We have built into this point to get to organizational culture. I hope you get some good tips from it. And also, if you ever want to watch the past episodes, they are in the website with Norwalk Green Development, so you can check them out and go into the other pieces we have done. But together, what we are building is some sort of a road in which we move from individual into the organization. So together we can have some, no matter what you do in your organizations, have some important influence in how our organizations operate. So today I have tips for people, what they can do individually, and then for leaders, what they can do as leaders to improve the organizational culture. Really quick, before we start, I usually put this agenda of the different workshops we have. After we finish the presentation, you get a copy of the deck, so you have the information. Today, we are working on building organizational culture, and next week, we're going to talk about a topic that is very important, which is conflict management. What do we do when people don't get along, and how we carry on conversations and so on. And then we will move into a very important piece of, when we try to decide whether being a manager or not is our path, how to make that decision. Usually good people are usually made managers, but not everybody's happy being a manager. So we'll talk about that. So what to expect today for the workshop is something that we're going through and right now. We will have some intros. So people that are virtually, get ready to introduce yourselves. We'll talk about good culture, bad culture. Then we'll talk about what is a toxic culture and what does it look like. What is the reason why people don't align with their organizations, and also how to build alignment with your organization and keeping your team accountable. And then at the end, we'll leave you thinking about trust, because trust is a very important piece when it comes to working in teams. So what you can expect is a lot of conversation and learning, opportunity for introspection, a community. Realize that through our conversations, you are not alone. You are not the only person that goes through some of the challenges we have when we are working and serving other people. And more importantly, you will not be told what to do. What we encourage people is to figure out their own path, what works for them, and give a few tips along the way. A few principles to observe that, I'm sure Linda is going to know them by memory by the time we are done with all the series. So we all have agency to change things. And that's important to keep in mind. It's not about remaining on that victim mode. It's about seeing where we can change things around us. Not because we may not have the power in the organization to change things at the top, it doesn't mean we don't have any power. The second piece is that we all learn from each other. I do get to learn a lot from the people that are in this in these meetings every time. Participation is super critical because in order for us to learn from each other, we need your input. Therefore, we want to make sure that this is a safe place for you to share. When you share, please, whatever is comfortable for you is what we are looking for. And in order to have that safe share space, what we practice when we give different opinions, even if we have different opinions, is to use the yes and. So we acknowledge what the other person has said, and then we express our own opinion, even if we are not in agreement with it. So that's a good way to communicate and bring that to the table. And so usually when we get to this part, we ask to people whether, you know, what are the principles they would like to observe and be part of this communication. So I'll open the floor for whoever wants to add a little something. I'm gonna pick on you guys here in the room. Let's see, anybody? Okay, you have something? You always have something to say. You're stuck right now. Lisa, anything?
Respecting each other's opinions,
Mhm.
keeping an open mind.
Fantastic. Anybody else? No? You're good with this?
Just let me know if I babble too long.
When you start.
I'll make you a little sign.
I'm Irish, so I can babble on for too long. So, you know, do one of these if I'm.
No problem. Anything that people that are virtual would like to add to this list of things that we want to observe today? Just unmute yourselves and chat it out. Okay, well, move on. I assure you, you are not going to be quiet the whole training though. Okay, so tips for participating remotely. Please keep yourselves on mute until you decide to say something, or I ask you or invite you to share. Breaks, we're going to have one break right after we finish one of the activities. And then restrooms are in the back over there by the little fire extinguisher. There is food for those that are attending in person. We will be sending the PowerPoint and the supporting documents. And very importantly, we will also be sending you a survey and a feedback form because we really want to know how we can improve the trainings that we are doing right now. So we are going to start with introductions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a person virtual to introduce and then a person in the room to introduce themselves. And so just state your first name and you can answer one of those two questions. If you have been here at the trainings before, what did you do differently since the last time we got together? Or if you prefer, you can say, what do you hope you can take with you today? What is the learning experience that you're looking for today? So I'll start with the room. And the first person I see in my group here is Yuri Garon. Hi.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much. This sounds wonderful. And, you know, what I hoped, Jury, did I say I was Jury? Yes, I did. I'm running from meeting to meeting. What I hope to take today, you know, that's just really more of community, a community of the fellow nonprofit world. To have a safe space to share ideas and to say, oh gosh, yeah, it's not just us that's going through this trial and tribulation, right? There's some real comfort in that. So community support.
Thank you so much for sharing. Welcome to the training. Okay, so I'll start with, I'm sorry, remind me your name.
Oh, Sean?
Okay, Sean, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Sean. And let's see. I was away for the last presentation. I was at the one about managing stress for the first one. And so I tried to really focus on separating work from my home life, because I work from home a couple of days a week.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that, there's a really good point made about blocking out time to do your focus work. So, I have that on my to-do list. I haven't, I haven't done that yet, but I've got it. Yeah, I thought that was a really great suggestion. So yeah, that's sort of what I try to do differently, and I'm still working on some of the other things for the last presentation.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes, small baby steps. You can change things from one day to the next, and it's important to keep in check our expectations so that we don't beat ourselves up and say, oh, how come I have all these tools and I'm not using that? It takes time. All right, so I'm going to go with Lisa Cooper on the other on the virtual area. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm named Lisa Cooper. And what I kind of try to do differently from the last presentation, because I was on that one about self-care, just really trying to make a conscious effort to just, focus on myself, especially on the weekends, and just take that time just to do things that I enjoy.
Perfect. How is that feeling?
It feels good. I need to do it more often. But my mind is always going like things you got to do. But I did it, and it's like I said, it's a work in progress.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Okay, I'll go on this side. Sabrina, do you want to share?
Sure. So I'm Sabrina Godesky. I'm with the city of Norwalk. This is my first presentation. I'm actually here for to participate the whole time, so I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to connect with all of you. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for being here too. Let me see who else. I have Valerie at home or virtually.
Hi, yes, it's Valerie. Good morning. So from the last time I was on, it was also about self-care, and we did a scale where you kind of evaluated where you were in life and what you were giving in different areas, career, family, self-care and things. And so since then, I've been a little more conscious about wanting to get to, or realizing where I am and where I want to get to in those areas. And I'm looking forward to just learning something new today, taking away information that I can apply to the workplace.
Thank you, Valerie. Yeah, I remember you were you really liked that wheel we talked about that time at that time. Okay, let's go with Lisa.
I'm Lisa Roger with Norwalk Housing Authority. Since the last time I read the book, How Your Brain Works.
You did.
Yeah. I found it very enlightening. There's a lot of different concepts in there that, maybe I've been using, but haven't really focused on it and brought it to the forefront.
Mhm.
So it's hoped to, kind of put a label on things. There were over the past, since the last time, it also, so it talks about setting up a stage and who you want to put on the stage and putting people on the stage and off the stage in the right order. And you can't have too many or you just get all messed up. So very conceptual, very, and they went through with kind of examples of, here's something done wrong.
Mhm.
And then knowing this, then here's how you might handle things better. And using that, I had two different meetings that had the potential to be very, very stressful and go wrong. But I followed some of the points in there and it actually worked out favorably. So
That is fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that you grabbed the book. It's just it has very good information.
it does.
Great. Good luck on implementing other things as you go along. Yes,
Baby steps. Big step.
it is a big step. So I have Maria April. Hi, Maria.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm sorry for the delay. So my name is Maria Abril. I work at St. Joseph's Parenting Center. And I don't know what I have done differently because I wasn't in the previous presentation. And so probably I did a lot of things. And today I hope to get new tools and strategies to work as a team in a better way.
Perfect. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, Katie, want to share anything?
Yeah, Katie O'Leary, I'm with the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency.
Uh-huh.
I did not do nearly as much as Lisa did. That was impressive. But I will say after the last workshop, it put in my head or reminded me to get up and move around during the day, not just sit at my desk, the minute I get there. I consciously got up and moved around and went outside a couple of times.
Very nice. Good. Small steps.
Right.
It
That was
counts.
baby
It
steps.
counts a lot. Yeah, it counts a lot. All right, let's see who else we have remote. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Ritu?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, hi.
Hi, how are you? My first name is Ritu. I work for a nonprofit in the Norwalk area. I unfortunately missed the first two sessions, so I can't really address that question. What I hope to take away today is, I love the phrase, there's power in numbers. So I want to learn from the other nonprofits, municipalities in the area and best practices, and really hope to take back to our organization how we can be more effective. I think nonprofits in general, we're always wearing a lot of hats. We're always short-staffed. So learning sort of how to be more efficient. And, we're in a space right now where we're very short-staffed. So, learning how to be able to do more with less, I guess.
Well, thank you. You are in the right place. And thank you for joining us today and taking the time, especially knowing that you have so much going on and so little people to complete the work. So
Thank you.
thank you. So we'll move over here. Remind me your name. I said I was really bad with names.
Sharon,
Sharon, there we go. Sharon, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm Sharon Rowe, mostly from Palestine. What I did different from last time was I actually relaxed. And I kind of turned my brain off and I started incorporating exercise twice a day.
Wow.
So when I go home after work, I completely shut my brain down. And it's baby steps, but it's. I figure if I focus on like an exercise or something different, then I don't have to worry about the phone or doing something for somebody else or somebody called me that needs something,
Mhm.
which is the biggest thing in my life. Somebody always needs something. So I'm practicing that, and I've been, going with the little exercise and stuff. Let's see.
Fantastic. Congratulations. That's a great accomplishment. And we know based on your feedback that you tend to be a person that follows through. So I'm happy that to hear that. Let's see, we have Lisa Randolph on at home or virtual, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa. I'm from St. Joseph's Parenting Center. Heard some good things. I wish I was at the first two presentations, but I will be at all of them moving forward. So I guess today my takeaway is just to learn and listen and about nonprofits and what this series is going to be on today. So I'm looking forward to the workshop.
Thank you so much for joining us. You have participation is key, remember, Lisa.
I will participate.
Awesome. Okay, let's go next.
Hi, my name is Greg. I am the site manager for the person-to-person food pantry here in Norwalk. This is my first session, and from listening to some of you, I wish I would have been with some of the earlier ones. I have a great team around me, but as Rita mentioned, we're always short-staffed with volunteers, whatever. And I have a tendency to worry about that ahead of time. And I'd like to be able to take that off the board, take each day as it comes, get to work, deal with what I have to deal with, rather than worry about it for 2 or 3 days ahead of time.
Thank you for sharing. I'm going to make a note here about worries. So we address a little bit of that.
You don't worry more about it.
Yes. I'll put you to worry more. Hi, Evelyn. Do you want to share?
My name is Evelyn, and I was not here in the last presentation. What I hope to take today is something new. I'm a big believer in that every day we learn something new, exercise our brains. So yeah, learn something new that I could put into practice with my team at my office and across the board in my community.
Fantastic. Thank you, Evelyn. And because I know Evelyn, I know we're going to learn from you too. So, okay, Lucky.
Oh, slow motion today. I guess I missed the last thing too. I forgot I was out of town. So, okay. So I like, the older I get, I like learning. So I think I'm becoming more aware of my surroundings, the people around me. And I'm always looking for, little tips to take away from everything. So.
Awesome. I hope you leave with a lot of tips today here. Okay, we have a few more people that haven't said anything at home yet. So did I go through Maureen? Not yet, right?
No.
Hi, Maureen.
Hi, I'm Maureen. What I hope to take away today is maybe some suggestions on how to improve the culture of a team so that we can all enjoy our work more and feel engaged with other team members.
Thank you so much. How about Crystal?
Hello, my name is Crystal, and this is my first presentation, so I'm happy to be here today. For takeaways, I'm just looking to learn some unique ideas for building team synergy and working more effectively.
Thank you so much for sharing. Hopefully you get that. And I think the last person I have is Edith Ramos.
Yes, hi, my name is Edith. Today it's my first presentation, and my goal for this workshop is to be present and also take something new.
Thank you, Edith. All right, so we will get started. And thank you so much for sharing. Hopefully the workshop will meet your expectations. If not, tell me in the survey so we can add it to the next presentation. All right. So let's talk about culture in general. So what I have there is that if we don't intentionally create culture in our work, the culture will create itself. And sometimes we may end up with a culture that we don't want and we don't like. So it is important to be intentional about the cultures that we're working in and really work through that so that, we live in our work in a way that is happy, joyful, and according to our values. So what today we are going to address mainly is how do we create that intentional culture and what are the things that keep us from going into that intentional culture. Normally when I do presentations, I like to focus on positive things. But now I'm going to take you down a road in which I have 3 slides that are negative because we need to talk about toxic. So it's very important for us to change something is to be able to identify what it looks like. So I have a few slides on that. But before we are going to there, I want to reach out to the collective wisdom and ask you guys, what does a good culture looks like and what does a bad culture looks like to you? And so people that are home, please feel free to just open up your mic and shout at me what you're thinking.
Yvonne, I have something I'd like to add because we just recently experienced it. We had an employee who was we just had a situation where an employee just bad-mouthed everybody, and that just really created a negative environment for all of our employees.
So that person bad-mouthed the organization?
No, the employees in the organization.
Oh, wow. The co-workers.
Yeah, the coworkers, she would
Uh-huh.
badmouth, yeah, about one coworker to other coworkers and, try to like pit ourselves against each other.
Wow. It's a very, very toxic kind of behavior. Thank you for sharing that. We will talk about toxic people too. What else? What do we find in good cultures and bad cultures?
Personality.
Open communication
Okay,
with leadership and also coworkers.
open communication. What else?
Treating good culture, treating everyone the same with respect.
Mhm. From the janitor to the executive director, right?
Yep, everybody's treated the same.
But understanding, policies and procedure of the organization or of the group or whatever, but clear understanding of policy.
You are so right. Mhm.
Along with that, I think understanding like the goals of the organization, like what you guys are all working towards.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic, and kind of change the goals, so you can lose that clarity. Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Teamwork, being able to work together for that common goal.
Mhm. Teamwork. I'm so glad you are so positive. That's a good focus to have.
The other thing I would say, and I don't like the word empower, but involving people at all levels in the decision-making process.
Also being accountable.
Big part, right? Okay. What else?
For bad culture, micromanagement.
Uh-huh.
And, like not having any autonomy.
Yep.
In good culture, you will find a team that care for each other, leadership that care for the team.
Uh-huh. Care for each other. Perfect.
Bad culture, language, sometimes how you speak to people.
Okay.
Good culture, I would say, one where people give each other credit rather than those who can take, saying glory for things that others do.
Yeah.
Give credit where credit's due.
Perfect. What else from my virtual group? Any other ideas? No?
Respect for differing opinions.
Respect for different opinions. Yeah, especially nowadays in which, we seem to be very separated and, our opinions tend to be a bit extreme, right? It takes a lot of goodwill to be able to have a conversation with somebody that thinks very differently because we seem to be in the very extreme sides.
I just have a question. Does everybody find after we went through the COVID that the sound fighting sometimes not always? Nobody wants to be. So is it only like if you give the wrong opinion, you're the opposite person? it gets confrontational, but I don't think it was like that before,
Mhm.
as much.
I think-
People are defensive.
Yeah,
Come there.
I think that changed with like our political situation.
Politics was half, the other half, I think, was COVID.
Yeah.
Because before it was just politics,
Mhm.
we kind of thought it was normal, but we never grew up in COVID, so now that comes along, and you're not really allowed to give an opinion at all.
Mhm.
Everybody's just listening to that media, and they're not listening to each other. So that's what I'm finding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID did influence the way people, how much patience people had, and you know how quickly they got irritated. Definitely there is an aspect there, and we had a really bad combination with what was going on also in the country. Yeah. Does anybody want to add to that comment that Becky did in the virtual area? Something
I
that-
really couldn't hear him.
Oh, go ahead again.
Again,
Uh-huh.
I'm finding, not a lot, but enough out there when we're talking to people, we talk about having our own opinion. But if you're adamant about a certain subject, especially when we went through COVID/political politics right now, is people are not listening. They don't want to hear it. If it's not what they think, they'll either shut you down or get upset or walk away.
Uh-huh.
Where I didn't notice that as much before. Maybe I'm more aware now. I don't know which way it is.
Mm. So do you hear that now?
Yes, some
Ah.
like disagreeing without being disagreeable.
Mhm. Right. I think another aspect too, now that I'm thinking about it, is that during COVID, social media grew exponentially. And as you probably all know, social media has a way to target people on their likings or no likings, and they are really good at enhancing negative things because they sell more. So there is that other piece as well, in which people are acquiring a lot of information through social media, not considering whether the information is right or not, and they're losing patience because, again, we have gone to really extremes when we think about, and opinions and other people's ways of seeing life. So.
I also wonder if working virtual and remotely, we've sort of lost the ability to interact, and it's very different being in person versus being on a screen or listening in on a call or whatever the case is. I feel like there's been a lot lost to not actually being physically in our workspace.
That's a very, very good point. I think that may have something to do with it as well. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we had a kind of another event here, and some people were coming to a live event they haven't been out for a long time. And it was, some people were really taken back by seeing so many people and having to have conversations with them. They left feeling okay, but it's kind of something that we lost in our memory, right? Which is something so natural for humans, but somehow we have lost it. Mm-hmm. Yes. So thank you for that contribution.
I think that especially with COVID and Zoom and everything, it's a lot easier for people to be more apathetic.
Uh-huh.
Like, mute yourself and disregard. And I do think that people on a Zoom meeting versus in-person meeting, to me, it appears a lot more heated emotions.
Mm-hmm.
With people not being face to face
Right.
versus you really read them. Turn your camera off if they don't like something you say or whatever. You'll never know.
Exactly.
Feel this way.
Absolutely.
You're not experienced.
Not experienced.
Also, having meeting after meeting all day in a screen makes you tired, right?
Oh, I've had it.
It's
It's important when you're long distance, but if you're, next door and you're Zooming, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah, it is very practical too. Yet at the same time has, like everything, it sets facts. So thank you so much for this feedback. You guys are fantastic. I think we're done with the presentation because you mentioned everything I had already. All right, so let's move into let's see, can change the view here. All right, so let's move into a few things that happen when we have symptoms of a toxic and organization culture. As I was doing research for this, I really came up with 3 blocks of areas where we see symptoms of issues in an organization. There are symptoms and at the same time, there are causes of a toxic relationship at work. The first one is communication issues, which we are going to be addressing more in depth when we have our presentation next time, because we will be talking about that specifically. But communications issues tend to be #1 kind of issue where there is not alignment at work. Then there is lack of motivation. We all know employees that are not very motivated at doing their work, and you don't seem to be able to get them out of that way of thinking. And also poor leadership. This shows up as well as one of the trends of why people do not, get along at work, and there is not alignment and a good culture. So I'll go through each one of them, and I'm just going to give you a few examples so that we keep some things in mind, maybe some things you knew already, some things may be new. Let's start with communication issues. So #1, gossip and rumors. What is so funny about gossip is that everybody thinks that gossip is bad, but everybody likes gossip a little bit, right? There's something about gossip that is like tempting. So if somebody comes and tells you something that nobody else is supposed to know, you feel kind of like very unique and I'm special. I'm the person that is being like given this secret. But guess what? Nobody is able to keep a secret either.
But it's not always good. Because what I think, personally, if you come to me with something he told you, that means what I told you, you're gonna go. So I don't trust.
There is I never met a person that is able to keep a secret, to be honest.
Oh, I'm good at secrets.
Yeah.
Because I think on the other end, if I told you a secret, and I respect you not telling me, then I should respect you never telling me that, not telling me. But
Good
some
for
people,
you.
You're right. Most people, you gotta get it out.
You gotta get it out because it's like boiling inside you.
And the hint is, I love when I hear. It's a lie right then and there, because if you're telling me you can't hold it, you're gonna tell somebody else.
Yeah.
Depends on what the secret is.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people are meant to report it, don't tell me anything.
That's right. I did get a few people in trouble when I was a mandated reporter because, they share a little too much. But gossip and rumors are, one of the most damaging kind of things that an organization can have. And it's kind of the second truth running under the table. And to be truthful, I don't know if you ever played that telephone game in which like people make a line, and every time you pass on the information, it feels and it sounds differently. So by the time it gets to the 5th person, the story even looks different. But it is a sign and a symptom of an organization that feels that they can't speak openly about what's going on. And also it may be some personalities. Maybe in some organizations you can speak openly, but we still got the gossip and rumor because some people just function that way. They are used to doing that, but it's very damaging. Indirect communication, and I'll explain now what indirect communication means with the other pieces. Indirect communication means that you are not telling the person directly what you need to tell them. You are using other ways of telling people this way. For example, you are asking someone else who is more likely to say yes for permission for something they don't have authority for, right? You need to get an expense through in your budget or something like that. And you know that your boss is going to tell you, no, we don't have the money. You may go around that person and go directly to the finance person to get the approval. So those kind of things, is something called indirect communication, and what they cause is confusion. Also, not saying what you really mean. And we use that a lot in this area as well. I call it the Fairfield County kind of communication. Because you gotta be like so correct on how you say things that sometimes you can't say what you mean. And that doesn't ensure that you will be able to, get the other person to understand what you really mean. That is damaging as well. Telling someone else to communicate a message for you versus telling, telling the person yourself. I have many examples of that. And when you are a manager, especially, you are putting that place a lot. You have an employee who is not able to talk to someone else, and they come to you, so you talk for them. So that's something kind of a red flag that is important to figure out when you're working with people, and really encourage people to speak to one another. Giving a softer message, hoping the recipient will read along the lines. For example, our numbers weren't so good this month, but you, instead of saying that, you say, well, we are doing well. Our numbers weren't fantastic, but when in reality you say you're trying to hide what is really going on. And so people get confused as well. And using nonverbal communication cues, like rolling your eyes, looking at one another when somebody walks along, right? Shaking heads, all that kind of verbal communication skills that we all use are kind of like bad ways of communicating. So my question to you is why do you think these things happen?
I was just thinking about the gossip and rumors, and sometimes it can feel like a way of bonding with a fellow employee, and if you're not doing it, then you're just showing them that you don't care about bonding with them, or you're not. I guess it's like that, I never watch it, but that show Big Brother, where everybody's forming these alliances. You know, whenever I try to stay away from rumor, I feel like I'm gonna come across looking like I'm, a goody two shoes or better than them, so I think it can be kind of like this way of connecting, but it's really toxic, it's really dysfunctional.
It's very difficult to be out of the group,
Yes.
right? And we talked about it, I think, in our first presentation. It does cause being part outside of the group cause physical pain in people. That's why when we are shut down, we feel so sick when somebody gives us the silent treatment. That's the worst, right? Because you are feeling out. And it's kind of a human condition that is very difficult. And being out of the group when the rest of the group is gossiping is a difficult thing. You want to be part of it. Yes.
But I think you have to develop your own way of reacting to the whatever who's telling you the gossip information. You can roll it off by, just saying, that's probably whatever. And, just kind of like, oh yeah, oh really? And just kind of like not saying you're giving into it. Like they're like, what do you think? Oh, well, I don't really have a problem. Like, just kind of, you have to find a way of saying or communicating to that individual that like, oh yeah, like I heard that, whatever. Like don't move. Don't let it be a shocker or what? Don't suck yourself in. Because once you start going, then they want to tell you more. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I heard you. And just brush it off. It makes a big difference.
That's a really, really good technique to use. Mostly I tell people do not engage or or say, I'm not really interested in hearing this. But I think your technique is much better because at least you're getting out of it, but you are not like leaving that person cold, feeling like, oh, who does she think he is? Right? That's great. Thank you so much. Any other comments on why do we think these communication issues happen?
I would say some of them, maybe not the gospel numbers, but some of them, people's fear of confrontation. So, or negative. You're saying like getting a no answer when there's someone yes, right? Or knowing somebody might fight you on something.
Yes, absolutely. Confrontation is also very, very difficult.
I think it's also to do with like how you perceive somebody's going to respond to something, if that makes sense. Like I know people who will like take a very small problem and make it a big, huge problem if you tell them that thing. So I always want to like dumb it down a little bit so it doesn't seem as like extreme, but like I don't know, I feel like that similar to like the confrontational parts, like how are they gonna respond is how I frame what I'm saying and how I'm saying it.
I use that technique with my husband.
That's a word.
He always complains that I don't tell him things. But I'm like, I don't tell you because you get stressed.
The one that says telling someone else to.
Communicate a message for
message
you.
Is goes with exactly what you're saying, because there's times like, I'm not a confrontational person, like, I mean, I'm just gonna tell you what it is and keep moving. But I'm not one to sit there and get back and forth. And if I'm working with someone who I don't know you that well, and I have that, I'm smelling that personality as soon as I come around you, and I need you to do something, you know, I don't want, my first thing is, Lisa, did you tell so-and-so, because I don't want them coming at me, because I'm not, you know, what am I gonna do? I'm a newbie or whatever, they're gonna be like, I'm like, okay, so then I go to the boss and say, boss, could you tell, you know, and that's how I do it. I mean, you know, and it's like you said, it's just because you get uncomfortable when you see the personalities of people. And until you get to know them, then once you build a relationship with them, then you might still have trouble. But at least you have you have a
I
relationship.
think it's like a comfort thing.
Yeah,
Like once I know you
yeah,
well
yeah.
enough, I'm willing to be more open and honest and communicate in a way that's comfortable for me. But if you're new and I don't know who you are, I don't know who you know type of thing, it's like.
Yeah, it's perfect. And we're gonna talk about the importance of trust and how to build it once we get more towards the end of the presentation. So these are fantastic points. Anybody wants to share from their virtual location, what they think causes these communications issues? No? All right. There's one more thing I want to add to this, and there is the cultural component. When multicultural teams are very difficult to manage. Although they are great in the sense that we bring different ideas and people with different experiences, they can be hard to manage because people express themselves in different ways depending where they come from. So one example I have, for example, people that are from South America tend to be very assertive at the way they talk. The way they're very like straightforward. We have a lot of Germans down there and a lot of Italians, and that's how we speak. People closer to Central America tend to be softer. So someone that even speaks my same language may be taken back by the way I talk and the way that I say things. So it's very important when we are communicating with our coworkers, try not to be the tone police, because it is very difficult to get different cultures to work together and to express themselves until you get to know that person better. Then you will know that they mean well. But a lot of people speak with different tones and use different words that may mean something different in our culture. And that can be challenging as well. So we want multicultural groups because of all the benefits it offers. But when it comes to communication, we have to be very careful about how we interpret what is being said. Also, if the person is speaking a second language, it can be even more challenging, right? Because their sentences may not be translation may be different. The sentences may be not as complete until they get a better hand of it. So that's just a little parenthesis I want to make on communication, because when it comes to culture, it can be even more challenging in that aspect. But in general, what happens with people is that they just don't want to get in trouble, and they don't feel that there is a safe way to communicate at work. So one of the very important areas to start developing in organizations is that way of communicating, right? And this can be done through exercises, through workshops, through facilitation, in which we learn how to give information to one another. Quick tip, things to use are compassion, understanding. If you have a misunderstanding with somebody, and I'm moving into kind of what I will say in the other presentation we're going to have, but think about that person as a brand new person every day. It really helps. You come in through the door and don't think about what happened yesterday. You look at them with brand new eyes and curiosity. It's really helpful when it comes, especially when you're getting to know people and you have to exercise a little bit more patience than with the people you know. So the next one is lack of motivation. So what causes lack of motivation? First, unfair delegation of work. If people are getting more work than others and it feels for that person that, you know, this situation is not fair, then they start feeling like there is not enough. This is something we have to be careful, especially with people that are in the very beginning of starting their careers. What happens is that they don't have a perception of what kind of workload a manager has. So they don't understand how much work the other people have. They just feel all the work comes to them. So it's very important to communicate and explain to them and kind of like guide them through their new experiences at work. Other thing that happens that causes motivation is lack of consequences for underperformance. When people are underperforming and managers are not taking care of that, what happens is that people are feel, you know, that this situation is not fair. Here is a person that is not carrying their own weight, and I have to pay for it. Difficult teammates, talking about problems but not offering solutions. That's a big one. We gotta work on having a solution-focused kind of organization. Okay, yes, detecting problems is very easy. Finding a way to resolve things is a little bit more difficult. So there is importance in there. Lack of meaningful feedback. When you are working with somebody and you did a great job or a so-so job, people are looking to learn and grow. And when there is no feedback that is meaningful to them, and they're, for example, all the time getting a pat on the shoulder and hearing great job, great job, great job, but there is not substance with it, that causes also lack of motivation. Lack of clarity or direction. I think Sharon mentioned that at the beginning when we were talking about the things that are make a difficult or a bad culture. When there is no clarity on direction and what the priorities of the organization is, that causes a lot of lack of motivation because people don't know where to, you know, go. And although people want to have agency in the decisions they make, they also need direction from their leaders on what are the priorities. Especially if we have so many things going on. What do I do first? What is more important? Division and competition amongst co-workers. This happens a lot too when we do not get acknowledgement for what we do, what we accomplish, or when other people, like Katie said, take credit for what we did. That tends to be kind of, you know, something that causes tension among co-workers. Lack of confidence in leadership. If I don't trust my leadership that they are going to do the right thing, most likely I'll be part of the group of the gossip. Because I'm looking for other venues, other ways to kind of express exactly what I'm thinking. Unalignment with the mission. If you don't believe in the mission that you're working in, there's a lot of likability that you are not going to be satisfied with your job, especially in nonprofit work, right? The mission is everything. Like I always say, nobody's in nonprofit for the money, right? So you better be aligned with something, and the mission is what drives people. So that's kind of that piece. And then we're going to move into poor leadership. And what does it look like? When we have poor leadership, it shows up as an individualistic culture. Okay, leaders are not embracing what it means to be a collective, to be a community. And these things come from the top. These messages come from the top. You see a lot of passive-aggressive behaviors that may come from the boss or the people that are under the boss, the middle management kind of people. And as a reflection, right, is the lower tiers as well. This is basically like a big family, right? If you see the example coming from your parents, what are you going to listen to what they say or what they do? And so when you are in any organization, you will be watching your leaders and taking a look at how they act, and that's the way you are going to follow. If your boss that never takes lunch, you don't feel free to take lunch either. If your boss doesn't listen to opinions, you won't take opinions either. If your boss overworks, you will overwork as well. Other things that show up is when there is no room for mistakes. When people make a mistake, they are criticized, they are yelled at, they are treated poorly. There is contempt or disregards for others people's opinion. That's a big one. People are not acknowledged when they have an opinion. Use the yes and. That's magic. People really like that. Cutthroat or backstabbing behavior. That also shows up when leadership is not kind of putting their work into having a better culture. Pointing fingers at each other, right? We don't take responsibility for what happened. We just kind of keep on pointing at each other and putting the responsibility on someone else. Careless communication. Chronic negativity. We see that a lot. Are you familiar with that chronic negativity?
I work part-time with a lady. Oh, somebody needs to like put a sign over her head and just keep a mirror in front of us. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Some people can't help it.
And yeah, it's just, you know, and she's one of those people that tell me, if I can do it, you can do it too. You know, like if I want to work, if I work every holiday, every Christmas, every this, every that, well, why can't you? You know, it's just constant stuff with these things. You have to just pray at the door before you go in.
Oh my goodness.
I think
And you know what Lucky's saying is so true. They can't see it because what you do is what you grow, right? That's the way your brain works. If you're negative every day, your brain is naturally going to start thinking every day. Thus, you are building your neural paths to kind of like do the same thing over and over again. So it becomes sometimes so chronic that people don't even notice they are that way, right?
that's true.
Preferences and exclusive groups. That shows up a lot, right? And you know, in big organizations, the little groups of the managers, they go out to lunch all by themselves. They have their internal jokes. It's intimidating. And also, you know, it just doesn't make you feel good about being there because you are not part of that group. Micromanagement, like you said, unsafe working conditions. That's a big key. If we have workers that have to go, for example, to do visits at other people's homes and they're not provide with the support they need to be there in a safe environment, that's very stressful. And that can really build into kind of like people being disengaged from work. Also, if you're working at places where people are at risk, right? Homeless shelters, P2P is a place that kind of sees all kind of people coming through the door. If you're feeling unsafe, it's just really difficult to be engaged. And these are things that leaders need to take care of, right? Bullying and abuse, it happens. There are leaders that can be abusive. Today I was saying if I had enough time to put a video, I was looking for the Alec Baldwin, the one Always Be Closing movie. He's so abusive in that piece of, so abusive. I was like, this is a great example of a very abusive boss. There is fear to speak candidly when there is poor leadership. But one thing I wanted to mention, and you know, for you guys to keep in mind, is that leadership sets the tone, but it's up to you to follow. So there is your power, right? I know sometimes it feels like everybody's like, you can always make a decision. You can even make the decision that you're going to leave that job, ultimately, right? Because it's not a safe environment for you. But there are ways in you, wherever you are in the organization, can influence the change so that these things do not happen. Lastly, I would like to address the toxic coworker, okay? Because they exist, they're real. Toxic people manipulate those around them to get them to do what they want. By means of lying or bending the truth, or exaggerating or leaving out information so that they can they can do certain things that they want them, or they can have certain opinion of them. Okay, so that's what toxic people do. And Although you may feel, compassionate towards a toxic person because you know that their life might be so difficult, I have to tell you, you can't fix toxic, unfortunately, unless that person decides to go and seek treatment on their own. Toxic people may be dealing with trauma or things that may have happened in their life before. And they're dealing this by having relationships that are not good for them because this is the way they know how to cope. So yes, it is very important to have, empathy towards people like that. But if you have people in your lives that are expelling toxicity and it's affecting your own life, it is better to not be close to them. Additionally, for leaders, it's very important to understand that if you have a toxic person in your team, it is going to be very difficult to change that person around. And you have to make tough decisions. Sometimes we have brilliant people who are toxic and you need them so much at the job, but what they are going to cause in the culture is not worth having any kind of expertise that they may have. So one thing to keep in mind is always, be reasonable and understand that that person has something else going on, but also understand that you are not gonna change that. So after going through this very low energy kind of conversation, I want to talk about healthy teams and what do they do. So what healthy teams do is that they express themselves, they question, challenge, and participate. That's a healthy team. If none of these things are happening, there is a big alert to toxic work environment. So a healthy relationship at work with your coworkers looks like you can have a discussion that may be difficult, that you may have different opinions. Then the next day you show up to work and everybody continues to have a good relationship. And that's what it looks like. So what can you do personally to cooperate and help with culture being better? First, commit to communicate directly with the person that you should communicate with. Go through the proper channels of authority. If your manager doesn't listen to you, then you can take next steps and go to someone else, but try to use your proper channels of authority. Also, be upfront about the situation and accept whatever responsibility you may have in the issue. If you haven't, got into an argument or something went wrong, things don't happen just only one-sided. You probably reacted in a way that was influenced by your emotions at the time. Or maybe, you shut down, or maybe you walk away. Whatever is going on, it is important that you do a little bit of insight and look within yourself and take responsibility for the piece that you own, right? Do not talk through others. And avoid accepting the messenger role for someone else. And raise your concerns to leadership. If you don't trust your leadership, then there are other things that can be made. There is a lot of work that organizations can do into building culture. It takes time. It is a lot of investment, but there is a lot of materials out there that can be done and, bring experts into the table if you have the funding, because, it is work, and recovering from a culture that may be a little bit difficult may take a bit of time. Does anybody want to add anything to the things that we mentioned here? Anything else that you think that you could do to collaborate with a good culture? Anybody at home has any ideas? All right. So if we don't have any ideas, it is time for a break. We will be back in 7 minutes. It is 1:38. So we'll be back at 2:05. 7 minutes. It's not 10. It's not 5. It's 7 minutes. So we will be back at 1:42.
Oh, yes, I did. We're on a 30-day streak or, yeah, not what is streak.
Hi, everybody. We are gonna come back. Hope you're around. You didn't fall asleep, you know, wherever you are.
We were hearing it every week, but I think we,
You know, it's all right.
well, we do have you.
Yeah, I was on Zoom, but yeah.
Oh, you were.
Yeah.
All right, I will share my screen again and we will get started.
We come and Zoom down.
Okay, so let's talk briefly about why people do not align with organizational values. This is very quick. The first thing is what we all spoke about already, right? Having a toxic culture, having communication issues, lack of motivation, and poor leadership does not help people align with the values that the organization has. Also, there is an alignment with the mission, or the mission is unaligned with the work they're doing. And that happens. Sometimes organizations started a very long time ago and they were doing one thing, and today their mission doesn't look at all like what they're doing today. So somebody joins and they are like, okay, I'm here for this, and then they see a different reality. Lack of clarity, direction, and prioritization. We spoke about that briefly as well. Lack of clear expectations. That's very, very important as well. Lack of agency, you know, the power you have to make decisions and to kind of like participate in the decision making. So that's kind of what I have. Let me check the chat because I have a couple of people here. Yeah, I have someone that says whether the deck will be available after the presentation. Yes, it will be available. We will email it to you as soon as we are done. All right, so here is a few tips about how to keep your team accountable. First of all, one of the best things that you can do to keep your team accountable is to get buy-in and engagement in the decisions that are being made. This takes a lot of work, right? Because you have to get together with your team, you have to decide what your priorities are. But if you get buy-in and engagement right in the beginning, people are more likely to engage into what you will be doing. So developing sharing goals is very important. Ask them provoking questions. Why do things matter? What is your why in this situation? Why are we doing this? Do we have to keep doing this? Do we have to stop doing this? Right? Allow for people to decide priorities. And very importantly, if there is a decision that you know that you're going to make as a leader of a group, and you're going to be the one that has to make the decision, don't lead them to think that they're going to have decision power. Those things have to be clear right in the beginning, right? When we collaborate, people want to know what is expected of them. And if they put a lot of work into what you're planning or doing together, they may have some also expectations of having input and the final decision. So those things have to be made clear right in the beginning so that there's no confusion. The next tip is set clear expectations. We talk about that several times throughout the presentation. When you set clear expectations, you have to be very, very specific. It's the what, the who, and the when, right? If you are looking for someone to produce a report for you, be clear. I need this report be done by you by Friday at 5 p.m. This is how I need it, so that people know where to establish their own priorities as well. If you are vague, there's a lot of room for confusion, which in turn hurts the culture of the organization. When it's possible, have your team create their own timeline for how they want to do things for certain projects. Demonstrate, obviously, and model the behavior that you expect them to have. It's like what we talked before, right? Don't do what I say, do what you see that, I'm doing. Allow your team to make mistakes. There is always a learning opportunity when things don't go the way we had planned them. And so when these mistakes happen, you can, be proactive as saying, oh, well, what did we learn from this? Or here's a great opportunity for us to figure out what do we learn from this. Address conflict immediately. If you see that there are coworkers that are having some conflicts, and the next session will have some tools for that, address it immediately. Don't let it go. Don't let it pass. Encourage an open dialogue within the people that are either under you, or it may be your coworkers as well. And be sure, very importantly, that everyone has the same information. Now that we are working, in this hybrid kind of situation, and some people are in the office sometimes and other people are not, there is a lot of information that gets passed when people are on site that maybe people that are online don't have access to. So it is extra work, but it's important that teams are aligned in order to have harmony and having the right information. Everybody having the right information is important. Then, for holding people accountable, the best thing that you could do is to teach your team to hold each other accountable instead of you having to do the job. So nobody likes those in the teams that take advantage of everybody else's time. No, nobody likes somebody that, gets away with things. So when you are leading a team, be sure and be clear about the consequences of underperformance. What is it that is going to happen if people do not come through with what they have committed to? Engage difficult teammates. Encourage your team to work side by side and make decisions together. Encourage creativity and problem solving. If something didn't go right, okay, how can we resolve this? How can we make it better? It's not the end of the world. I know a lot of people are warriors and think that, when something goes wrong, everything else is gonna just fall. I like to remind people, because I don't work in a hospital setting, that nobody's performing heart surgery. So it is okay when things don't go as well as planned, And I think in nonprofits, we are very good at improvising when it's necessary, right? Make sure your teammates can come to you with questions if they have any, and that they feel comfortable asking you. Encourage feedback. Feedback is very important. When you get it, make sure you address it and think about it. Sometimes when you're receiving feedback, it's good to say, thank you so much. I'll take it into consideration and give it some thought instead of being tempted to respond to it. Because, when we get feedback, especially if it's constructive feedbacks, our emotions are likely to take over, and we may say things that are totally emotion-based. So take that feedback back to you. And also when you receive feedback, or when you give feedback, make sure there is positive feedback coming through as well, right? Every time we think about feedback, people are thinking, oh, what am I going to be told? But it's really positive things can be said as well. And very importantly, if you are giving a message, clarify and circle back if you didn't understand what was being said. You would be amazed that sometimes in meetings or when people are receiving directions, how many people have questions that they don't ask. And when you are the brave person that it says, I don't understand what is going on, so many people are like, yeah, I don't understand it either. But it takes one brave person to be able to kind of say it, right? So it is important to circle back and clarify any information that has been given to you. Another thing, because we are also busy doing so many things at the same time, people are having a hard time retaining information. So using different channels to communicate what you want to say, it's important. So you say it at a meeting, you send it in an email, you send it in a calendar reminder, right? Eventually it will sink in. But saying things only one time is not enough, because we have a lot going on, all of us. And last time, the last one is take time to celebrate your wins. When something goes right, we have the tendency to say, okay, that's done, let's keep going. And we forget to celebrate the things that we have accomplished. So, I can see a lot of heads nodding here. I think it's a thing that we have as a society. Okay, done, let's move on. But it is important to celebrate when something goes well. So I'm not going to stop this for a very long time, but I want to show you something that is called the team performance model. This is a model that I teach in workshops, and we work with organizations. Just to show you a little bit what it looks like for an organization that is healthy and the process that they go through as they kind of develop. The first thing and most important thing are the first two steps that organizations usually tend to skip, which is orientation, getting a lot of clarification of why am I here, why am I part of this group, and what is my role, and then trust, building trust. Who are you? I'm now starting to work with you. Who are you? Let me get to know you. Those pieces are crucial. If the organizations are not good at completing those two pieces, they most likely will have issues down the road because people are lost. They say, oh, I don't even know why we're doing this, right? Or I don't even can relate to this person that you put me to work with. Goal clarification, we talked about it throughout the presentation. What are we doing and how? How will we do it? And then who does what, when, and where? Running a workshop like this may take like a couple of days because every step is so important. But once teams have kind of gone through the different kind of phases, they can move into high performance and continue. Now teams go through these phases all the time. So not because you completed all the phases, it means that you're gonna still stay forever in high performance. You get a new teammate, you start at the top again, orientation, you get a new team member and so on. And if your roles are changing, or if what you're doing is changing a little bit, it's always important to go back to that model. I want to speak about trust because this is one of the most important things when it comes to having a good culture in your organization. You spend so much time working with so many people, right? Trust is key, number one, so that your culture aligns. So there is this little book, Lisa, called The Theme Book of Trust. It's very thin, as you can see, and you can read it, if you're traveling somewhere, you can read it in a sitting. And so the author of this book says that choosing trust means choosing to risk making something your value vulnerable for another person. So when you trust somebody, you give yourself the right to be yourself and put on someone else something that you may value. I put a link here. He has a good podcast with Brené Brown, if you like Brené Brown. And he explains the whole model of trust in that podcast. So you can click on the link once I send you the PowerPoints and you can check it out. But what he says in his book is that in order to have trust in a team, we have to have 4 components or 4 kind of building blocks, pillars, and so on. So these building blocks are the following. First, care. We are in this together. We care for what we do and we care for one another. The next one is reliability. Can I count on you? Can I count on me for deliver what I promise? Can you count on me for deliver what I promise? Basically, do you meet your commitments? Right? If you can't meet your commitments, how do you communicate about it? If a coworker is depending on you to get a certain part of information so that they can finish the report that you need to do, and you commit to sending that report, and just make sure that if you can't get there, you tell them, I can't get there, I need extra help. Most people don't do it, but it's a good way to do things. Sincerity. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean and act accordingly. That's very important, that when we perceive that people are not being truthful, we lose trust right away. And once you lose trust, it's very, very difficult to recover it. That's one of the most challenging things to do when you're working on conflict management, is when people have lost trust for each other, it is very difficult to get that back. Competency. I know I can do this. If I don't know, I can learn it. When we are working with other people, we are looking to trust that they know what they are doing and they know how to do it. And if they can, they have the commitment to learn it, right? I am asking you to do a pivot table from an Excel sheet. Can you do it? Oh, yeah, I can do it. I have no idea. There are two choices: or you screwed up, or you're looking YouTube how to make a pivot table, right? Because everything is in YouTube right now, right? Or if you have difficulties with Excel, you ask your supervisor to maybe can I take a specific training on this? But it's more than you knowing what to do, it's the willingness to learn what you don't know and accept what you don't know that will build that trust with your coworkers. So I think, let me check on the time. It's already 2 o'clock. So I'm gonna give you this homework to do on your own. And when I send you the slides, you're gonna get the notes as well. And what I want you to do is to do a little bit of reflection. And we can revisit it maybe when we come back. We can do it as an exercise for when we see each other next time. When you think about the 4 blocks of trust, okay, you take a look at them. What is it that I give and what do I need to get from others? I'll give you an example. For example, my Spanish is coming up. I give reliability. If I say I'm gonna do something, I do it. What I like to get from people is sincerity. That is important for me, that people are sincere. So give it some thought. Some people like to give the same thing that they get, or the opposite. But give it some thought and see what you think about it. And we'll start our next session with a little exercise about the things that you like to give and the things that you like to get based on this trust model that I'm sharing with you. Also, if you think of other things that are important for you that are not in the model, you are welcome to put that as well. So last but not least, this is my last slide. What can your organization do as an organization when you talk about your leaders? First of all, be sure that your mission is aligned with your goals. We talked about that briefly. Mission is important. Everybody is in the work because of the mission. Engage on a strategic planning at all levels. I know some people hate strategic planning. They're like, for how long are we gonna plan? Right? We need to do the work. But if you don't know where you're going, there's always going to be chaos. So you need to set that. And it can be done at the organization level, or it can be done at the very little team level. Even 2 people can figure out where do they want to go. You can set your goals, your objectives, and your key results. How are you gonna know that you got there, right? Provide guidance and spell out the expected outcomes for your team. Develop your organizational values and live them. So one thing is, engaging into the activity of figuring out what are our values and who do we live by them. The other piece is that people really go by those values. And so one thing that you want to find out is how people express those values. So for example, if I say, for me, it's very important, honesty is important. It's a value that our organization holds. How do I demonstrate honesty? And eventually get the organization to hold each other accountable on holding those values and living by them. And another idea is to create within your organizations a culture team, a team that makes sure that that culture that you have created intentionally continues to go on for a long time. They work really well. Usually it's a volunteer kind of thing. People like to do them, and they organize things for the staff and things that really enhance that culture that everybody wants to attain. So if you have to leave, I'm sorry, we always run late. I tend to have like a little bit too much information. But if you want to stay and give me some departing thoughts, I would love to hear your thinking, where you are at, if there is anything new that you learned or something that you're taking with you home today.
It's been really helpful. Something that I'm not sure how large the organizations are, the rest of you guys are with, but we're so small. And something I wrestle with a little bit is, you know, when you talk about organizational culture and you're a staff of 6, you know, you do need to have clarity. And it's important to have a lot of these principles, but I'm always leery of seeming like going overboard for such a small group, you know. And as the director of it, I'm always leery of this, you know. And I think in the nonprofit world too, there's always this feeling like we're being too corporate, you know, we're being too formal. We're here to do, and we're here to just help people. So a lot of times when I think about this, it's hard to communicate the importance of it, because I don't want to come across as being bureaucratic or, you know, yes, we're small and we can be informal, but it's important to have guiding principles. And so I don't know if I'm making sense, but
Yes, you are.
something that I think it, because when I was a part of a larger organization, this work was, people understood why you needed to do it. There were a lot of departments that didn't always work together. And now that I'm part of a really small group, I do think it's important to have a lot of these elements, but I'm always leery of just coming across as being just having a meeting to have a meeting, or, you know, overdoing it or something.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel the same things you do, but also you have a great opportunity now because your team is still small, right?
Yeah. And have you feared to go to the business right away and kind of appeal to the heart first of the people? You're here and why you're here, and that's so much in a way there. It's business and you gotta get, you know, but more like, you know, try to feel out everybody's heart, like how are they all here because they know what the job is? And maybe just emphasize that everybody's job is connected to everybody's job, but in a conversational way. You have 6 people, that's a great conversation, right? To start it out, versus when it gets larger, then you really have to be stern. But you know, if you can start building from that point on, here, let it be like so informal, your family right now, just kind of like give their hearts out. And see how you can get there. Do you think you do that in a group? Is that the way to do that, or is it more to talk to people one-on-one? And why don't you do it in a social, mini social meeting? You know, it doesn't have to be. If you have a topic you just discuss and stuff like that, you know, for a couple of sandwiches or whatever, it's kind of like.
Another thing I hear a lot of my friends role play. Some people like it, some people hate it. So that might be something to try to interject in. We're all so small and everyone has their very specific roles. And I think sometimes the person who does grant writing
doesn't want to sit in a meeting learning about how we're gonna fix up houses today. You know, they feel like they have a better use of their time, or, you know, vice versa. So that's something,
That's not my
Yeah.
job description.
That's so
Yeah.
interesting because they are losing all the material that they need to put in the grant.
Yeah.
By not being in that meeting.
I know, I remember that.
Have you ever tried telling this to your team?
yes, and yeah.
Yes.
I
Not
know.
straightforward.
No, I'll always couch something, they call me the coucher. My board chair calls me the coucher. So I have a problem with doing things too softly, probably.
Uh-huh.
But I will say a lot that, you know, that, yes, we're small, but we need to, you know, we need to be respectful of one another, and we do need to have some of these agreements.
Mhm.
The other thing I have a really hard time with, I don't want to make this all about me, but it's that, you know, the thing you brought up about brainstorming versus decision making is something I really have a hard time with. It plays into motivation too, because I think in nonprofit, you can't give everybody a raise or bonus. You know, the resources aren't there to do that on a regular basis. So it's people, their motivation is coming from a bit of a different place.
Mhm.
And I feel like sometimes that motivation is, I'm here, I have a specific idea of how we should be helping people. And that's why I'm here,
Mm.
you know, and so so framing this brainstorming so that I want to get all your views, but I'm the boss. And that, you know, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to have to make a call based on what I think is best. I think people tend to, you know, I have a hard time communicating that. And I think people have a lot of passion in nonprofit, and they can get really disgruntled if you don't, if their idea of being heard can sometimes only mean you're gonna do what they're
But they are
what they're
suggesting.
suggesting. And I have a hard time, or maybe it's conflict.
Yes.
Management type stuff. but-
So yes, absolutely. The best recipe is to learn how to ask challenging questions to people. So instead of telling them, you ask them questions and you ask them questions and you ask them, and if you have them in a group, and that takes a bit, you know, of getting used to, right? Thinking how to ask open-ended questions so that they don't answer yes or no, they answer what they're really thinking. It's a technique that, you know, can be learned as managers for a while. I have a couple of books that I can recommend you on that, how to give feedback, which is from the Harvard Business Review. And there is another book about coaching your staff every day. I don't remember the name quite a bit, but we'll send it with the email. So that you can check them out. It gives you excellent tools to use it on your everyday conversation. But I can totally see the challenge. Because when people have a skin in the game, they also want to feel like they have the opportunity to make the decision, and that's not always the case.
I was gonna just add the thought to that I had, you know, maybe there's not that this is for putting you on the, you know, hot seat here, but maybe there's times where you might be able to stop that and say, maybe this is an idea or an event or direction or whatever that I don't feel as strongly about as normally, so I'm gonna go with my director of development.
Right, oh, yeah,
Right?
yeah, that's a good
And
point,
that would
yeah.
make that person feel like, oh, all right,
Yeah.
okay, well, now I am part of the decision making. Not
Right.
decision, but-
Yeah, that's true.
The other way, I'm sorry, perfect. The other way is that you can offer two options that are both equally okay for you, and then they can make the decision between those two options.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, you know, I have a very small team too, although the volunteer group is also part of my team.
Yeah,
And one of the tools that I find effective is everybody knows that I'm the boss.
yeah.
But, so just for example, during COVID, our methods of delivery changed. a lot. We were all grab and go, and then we started a couple afternoons where we let clients come back to the pantry. And every time ahead of these changes, because the changes would come from the top, I would be told this is what we need to do. I would say to the volunteer group and to my staff, listen, this is what's gonna happen starting July 1st. I'm not sure what it looks like. Let's everybody put their heads together, and probably more than my staff, the volunteers love that. They just,
That's
because
fair, yeah.
they felt like they owned the decisions. And in the end, they all knew that I was gonna make the final decision.
Yeah,
But I always say to my volunteers, I say, quite honestly, most of you are a lot smarter than I am, so I'm happy to take your input.
yeah. So this is happening in July 1,
Right.
but I want to get your,
Yeah, let's all put our heads together.
okay, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's already 2:15. I have to, at least, if you guys want to hang out and continue chatting, you are more than welcome to. I don't have anywhere to go until 3, so I have time. But I want to say bye to the people that stuck around on the online. Oh, we are until 2:30? Oh, my goodness, I thought we were until 2. Okay, let's keep talking then. Oh, okay, so let's keep talking. No, not at all. I'm a little embarrassed right now. I have to.
Gonna bring in some wine now?
Awesome. Anybody else then wants to bring other challenges that they face that they would like to kind of have input on from the rest of the group?
Yvonne, I shared something on the chats, Yvonne.
Okay, let's see. Thank you. Let's see. A few people had to jump off. Thank you, brother. I trust. Trust is very important. Team trust is very important. Remember, it takes time to establish and repair lack of trust. Thank you, Evelyn. Remember, Rome was not built in a day. Absolutely. Evelyn, do you want to expand into that a little bit?
Well, I just want to say that we gotta, all the strategies and the points were very good. We gotta give these things time to roll over, right? And flourish. So be patient with each other. Be patient with each other would be my best advice to me today and to everyone here. Be patient with each other.
Absolutely. If you feel that your patience fails, use gratefulness instead. So be grateful for the people that are around you. Even if sometimes you feel that, you are losing your patience, just be grateful for the fact that you are able to interact with them. I'm sure not everything goes wrong in these relationships. Sometimes there are good times as well. And it's really helpful to use gratefulness when you lose your patience.
The thing is, too, you sometimes you think because you have a certain persona, you think that other people will adapt and become like you, and it doesn't really work. Like just like the lady was saying about chronic, I go in to the home and relax, and I treat everybody differently, and I'm kind of like, and it's just the two of us working together. So I'm like, okay, maybe she'll see that every time I come in, and I'm really back, and then it doesn't work.
Right.
And like after a year, you're like, oh my God, she's really just who she is. And there's nothing you can do. And you're right when you said toxic people are just who they are.
Yes.
She brings a lot of, I've been watching her, and then I watch how other workers are reacting to her. I realize she's really toxic. And it's not just me. And I feel like, I have said like, kind of like pacifying her behavior a little bit, like, oh, don't worry about that. Oh, and I'm like, oh, why don't you write down what you want done, or, you know, why don't you say it to her aside or say it to him, or, and you know, and then instead of her reacting to me saying, okay, maybe I'll try it, she's more like, no, they should know, and then, you know. So communication is like, you know, I'm glad it's only like 2-3 hours a day. I'm working with her, but it's.
Along the lines, I was gonna say along the lines of the toxic, you're saying something I thought of earlier is. I think I have a hard time with people who bring in their personal lives, right, and sit down with me and I don't, where you cut it off, you have work to do, and 10, 15, 1 half hour into your day, and all you've done is sat and listened to this person talk about whatever's going on in their personal lives, which I'm happy to be there for them if they need the support, they feel they need to talk about it, that's great. But, you know, and it just becomes every day or becomes longer, and how do you break yourself away from that? Or I have a hard time figuring out that point to break away. How to get back to work, you know, on that.
And our next workshop, I'm gonna teach you how to give feedback. So you can speak to somebody, you give the feedback, and actually tell a person, I love chatting with you, but you know, I have to finish work. We like make the conversation a bit shorter or something like that. There's certain techniques and ways you can go about having that conversation, so that people don't feel cut off or the emotions take over once you're saying what you need to say. So we will address that at the next.
Yeah,
conflict
along those
management.
lines, Peter, I was thinking about how, you know, work friendships are tricky, you know, because they can't be the same as friendships outside of work. And so when you have someone coming to you like that, talking about their outside stuff, yes, you want to see them as another human working with you and have a good rapport with them, but it's like,
Now I know too much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Little student used to say, my grandmother said, don't tell them too much, because they'll call the people.
So how do you set those boundaries?
Right.
You gotta be direct, but it's very tough to be direct.
Yeah, especially when someone's talking about something they're very emotional about. Now and then you have to sort of cut them off. You know, in order to continue on with your own day, you have to cut them off in the middle of maybe a time they're feeling emotional.
Maybe you say, I'm just thinking, because I'm horrible at this, but I'm just thinking out loud, maybe we could have lunch sometime, talk more. Or
Right.
maybe we should have coffee,
Right.
or, you know, get
Ways to
together,
set
if you want to.
Yeah, no, right.
You know what I mean, but
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a particular situation I'm now connected to. And I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe that same kind of thing, maybe I could just figure out how to do that kind of thing. I don't know if that's what having.
Go for a walk, let's talk
Yeah,
more about
right,
this on a
right.
walk, you know?
Let's walk at lunch and
Yeah.
you know, take a lunch break, right? And that kind of limits it then if you're break, then if you're lunch break, you know.
I remember our founder used to say that we're a family. When I was part of a bigger organization, I'm like, that really creeps me out. I'll say, my family will say things to me that I would never. You know, it's like,
Right.
I know what they mean.
We all have.
And when you're small, you do wanna, it's, I think, harder when you're small, you do wanna have, you do have this closer relationships with people and.
I think
It's,
that is so.
yeah.
I found that having an exit strategy at the beginning,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
like, I have another meeting, I'm working on a project, I can
10
spend
minutes,
5 minutes
but,
with
yeah.
you, we can talk about later.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good tip, Lisa. Very
It's
good.
crazy, well. That's how
Just make sure they don't see you still sitting at your desk.
5 yesterday call, and I kept saying, I kept hinting, I said that, you know, the really special because it's after 5. And I usually leave at 5.
It was about them. It wasn't about you.
Didn't get it, and then finally I was just like, oh. Somebody's waiting for me, it's 5:30 now, I gotta go.
It is hard. Does anybody at home have tips about what we're talking about? You know, how to get nicely get rid of people that are using a lot of your time?
Break off of
No tips at home? Well, so I'll show you next time also a video about compassionate directness and how you can make that work. Be direct in a compassionate way so that it sits well with people. Yeah.
I think it's important, Yvonne, to remember. Yvonne, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think it's important to remember that we're at work and everybody has a job to do. And sometimes, you know, my director has an open door policy. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna stand in her door all day and talk to her, right? Sometimes I have a question and I'll pop in and say, hey, do you have a minute? It's only gonna take 5 seconds. You know, it's important for us to be honest and state what we need and also be conscious of other people's time because we are at work. And I think it's important to be honest about that. And that's how you set boundaries, you know? And you know, just remembering that we're at work, so everybody has a job to do. So
That's great, Evelyn. Thank you. Thank you.
for your presentation.
Awesome. Okay, and now I'm gonna let you go.
Thank you.
I'll see you next time. Thank you for attending. Bye, everybody.